Welcome to the PFN Dallas Cowboys Podcast. I'm Jess, Nevarez, joined alongside Dalton Miller. Dalton, another week down for the Dallas Cowboys as they officially look like they're on the road to redemption after defeating the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football. How are you feeling after that very late night for you? Keep in mind, Dalton is on a bit of a different time zone, literally.
Yeah, a little bit.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, so I went to sleep yesterday here in Portugal time at around 7:30 p.m., which is 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And I slept until about 10 o'clock at night, my time. Woke up for my last meal of the day, which I had to eat, and then went back to sleep until 1:15 in the morning, which is when I woke up for the game. And I stayed up until about 5 a.m., went back to sleep until about 7:30. So a little chopped up night of sleep, but I ended up getting about 6.5, 7 hours. So it wasn't too bad of a day overall.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
How am I feeling about the game is a little bit different, though. Yeah, I mean, it was a win, and that's great. But as we will get to a little bit later, this still isn't a team that I'm confident in whatsoever.
Well, I love that transition. That was a fantastic transition and something that you're not so confident in, it seems like, is the play calling. What is your hot or not take for the week for the people? I mean, let them have it. Let them know.
Yeah, so my hot or not take of the week heading into the bye is that the Cowboys downgraded significantly at offensive coordinator, play caller, and game manager by moving on from Kellen Moore. And I'm not saying at all that moving on from Kellen Moore was the wrong move, because I don't necessarily think that it was. I think Kellen Moore is a good offensive coordinator, but I think that there were things that I would have liked to see clean up. Attention to detail was the huge thing in this offense that I really thought needed to be fixed. It's still not fixed, and now this offense is completely static, but still having problems pre-snap with penalties, and they're still lacking discipline on that side of the ball. The offense is not good. Dak Prescott just played out of his mind yesterday, and that's the only reason why they won that football game last night, because Dak put the team on his back last night. That's it. No other reason offensively other than that, because they can't run the ball, and the passing attack is not pretty to watch on tape. So that's my hot or not.
Ooh, look at you. You hit that right in a minute, my friend. You're getting really
you know
good
what?
at that.
I felt myself starting to ramble a little bit there, and I was like, has it been a minute yet or not? I had to look. We were good to go.
You know what? I love that. And tweet Dalton. Let him know if you agree with his hot or not take of the week. Personally, I disagree. I really think, it is week 6 of the season. So, yes, you would like things to look a little bit different. But, look, we can talk about this come week 12 of the season if you want. But if this means they're starting a little bit slower than other teams, but they pick it up later in the season, I'm cool with that. But here's the thing. They have to start to pick it up. That's the problem, is what you've seen is inconsistency throughout the last 6 weeks. You haven't seen a game that looks anything remotely like the week before for the Cowboys. And so with Dak Prescott playing like he did last night, man, it's hard to lose a game when Dak is playing like that. However, there's room for improvement for sure.
Yeah, my problem, more than the lack of consistency or the lack of responsibility and pre-snap penalties and things like that, I think overall it's just the offensive structure is not good. We are living in the mid-2000s, and we are in now 2023. It's just an antiquated offense overall. And so I think that we got schematically worse offensively. And then on top of getting schematically worse, Mike McCarthy now has to call offensive plays. And then his head coaching responsibilities, like clock management, have gone out of the window for him. And he was already not a good clock manager. He's never been a good managerial type head coach, even back in his days at Green Bay. And I understand why he wanted to take over the offensive play calling. If he's going to go down, it's going to be, him captaining the ship. But it's just not good right now. And I don't know how this offense gets better unless it structurally changes over the bye week. And that's just a lot to do in that short amount of time.
Yeah, no. And here's the thing. I went back because keep in mind when Mike McCarthy was calling plays in Green Bay, all I knew about Green Bay was Aaron Rodgers, right? I
Mhm.
wasn't too captivated in the ins and outs and the whys. It was like, you're playing Aaron Rodgers, period. And so when I went back to kind of compare parallels that, maybe he did in Green Bay and that he's doing now, I found it very interesting because the same word keeps coming up over and over and over, and that's conservative and playing it safe. And
Mhm.
like you said, the
He
questionable time management. That's been something that McCarthy's been scrutinized even back in Green Bay. And so
mhm.
I I just have such a hard time though imagining what this offense would look like if they had kept Kellen Moore around, because it seems like back last year you were having kind of the same issues, but because of a different reason, because of the amount of confusion and the complex scheme that was surrounding them. Now I don't know really what you pinpoint the issue to, because it's not a complex scheme. In fact,
No.
there's times where you're like, go for it. Why aren't you doing that? And we'll get into that whole debacle right before halftime with the time
Oh, okay.
management.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, to me, I knew it would be a little bit bumpy. Like, Mike McCarthy hasn't called plays in years. Mike McCarthy hasn't called plays for this team. And when you have the weapons that you have, it's frustrating when you see the ball distribution being as off as it's been. I mean, this should not be CeeDee Lamb's second 100-yard game of the season so far. That should be something that's happening on a consistent basis. And how do you fix that problem? Well, Dak took it upon himself throughout the week. He was talking about, yeah, I went up to CD and I told him, hey, if you have a problem, like, let's figure this out together. Dak made sure CD was getting the ball, right? That wasn't really, I don't think, a McCarthy thing. I think that was a Dak Prescott thing. And so um, I think Dak played a great game, but I also think there's room for improvement in his game as well. There's times where you can't afford the sack. You need to release the ball. And sometimes
Yeah.
he's trying to make the play and be the hero too much, where it's like, just throw the ball away. Just get the first
And
down.
and
And
that's the
how do
craziest
all that
thing.
balance together?
That's the craziest thing, because this offense has gotten towards conservatism, and I actually think it's just cowardice for the most part. I think that they're playing cowardly football. But Dak Prescott last night turned back the clock. He turned back the clock to his Mississippi State days early in Dallas, where he was going out and actually trying to make plays with his feet outside of structure. And that was a lot of the offense, a lot of the passing attack last night. And I just don't think it's sustainable that way, because I don't think Dak has the juice to consistently do that. Dak will make a guy miss every once in a while. He's a really big, strong quarterback, and he's able to shake tacklers every once in a while, but he doesn't have the swiftness to continuously make plays, get outside of the pocket, and distribute the ball. And I think that that's going to be an issue, because this offense is supposed to be about timing and getting to the ball to your playmakers early and allowing them to make plays. But the offensive line is still struggling, and they are not playing on time offensively, and it's showing because Dak had to go out and make a bunch of plays. Now, the one thing that happened with that is Dak holding on to the ball a little bit too long as he's trying to create and trying to make a play outside of the pocket instead of just throwing the ball away. Every once in a while, you have to live to see another down. And that's something that, especially with Aaron Rodgers in his time in Green Bay, did perfectly. If it wasn't there, he threw it away. He didn't try to force it. He didn't take too many sacks. And Dak has been really good at avoiding sacks since 2019. But last night, with that creation ability trying to come back, it showed up again.
Yeah, and I worry. I mean, I know he had mentioned a few weeks ago about maybe using his legs a little bit more when the red zone struggles were the main topic of conversation, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well. But I worry about that too. I worry about how often you're putting it on Dak Prescott to keep doing that, and at some point, you can't really use that anymore, because he used his legs last night. I mean, man was rushing. He was rushing all over the place. And look, that play fake, beautiful, glorious. Loved the touchdown
Well,
that we got from Dak Prescott. That was
that to
incredible.
Rico? Was Rico the running back on that play? I think
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know off the top
I
of
don't
my
think
head.
it was TP, and I don't know if any of the other backs got any snaps other than Rico, but it looked like the back tried to grab the ball. Dak almost lost that football because he was trying so hard to pull it. And the back did not want to give it. And it was really fun to see that play in live action, because it shows just how infrequently they're using Dak's legs, because literally everybody followed that pulling guard and tackle. Nobody was accounting for the quarterback whatsoever. That was about the easiest 18-yard run of Dak's whole career.
And I think that, again, that goes to you use it when you need to. And that was a great example of it, because no one's expecting Dak to be running like that. And he was running for his life. Glad he did. That was a great play by Dak Prescott. But let's get into this game a little bit more. Let's keep it on the offensive side of things, because overall, there's still some offensive issues that are concerning. Like you said, the Cowboys did win the game. However, there's still things that you can dissect that need work. And here's the thing. CeeDee Lamb in his post-game interview with ESPN said the same thing. He said it wasn't clean by any means, and it was not clean. You look at this game, and I think the real MVP of this game was the refs' flags that they kept throwing out all night. The Dallas Cowboys had 11 penalties for 85 yards. It was just a highly penalized game. The Chargers had 9 for 79 yards. This makes it the Cowboys' second highest penalized game of the season so far, just behind, guess which game? The Cardinals game, where the team had 13 penalties. And that is just so incredibly frustrating for many reasons. However, Dalton, I was curious about this, and I don't know if you saw me tweeting up a storm about this officiating crew last night, because here's the thing. The Cowboys obviously have their analytics department and access to this more information than I have by a simple Google search, right? And this crew has not had more than a couple highly penalized games. I mean, for the most part, they're a highly penalized kind of officiating crew. And here's what I thought was very interesting about it. The away team, typically, except for 2 of the games so far, had more penalties than the home team. So the Cowboys going into the game probably knew that. And overall, I just think what frustrates me about this is when you know you're getting a crew that is going to be very heavy on the penalties. Their most called penalties, by the way, this crew in general, let's see, I'm pulling it up.
Was offensive
holding, right? Was offensive holding, and this is pre-Dallas Cowboys Los Angeles Chargers game. False start and unnecessary roughness. Those were their top 3 penalties that they called before this game anyways. You know that. You're going into this game. You should know that. You should have eyes for it. And maybe you overlook it. Benefit of the doubt. You go into it at halftime and you know that, and you adjust. What drives me crazy about these highly penalized games is that both of the crews are highly penalized crews. And the Cowboys are not adjusting to that. And here's the thing. I understand the fine line that they're trying to walk of playing aggressive and, playing smart, because there's a really thin line that you have to walk on to do that. And I understand why they want to. You should. The 49ers do it all the time, but guess what? They're the most highly penalized team in the NFL right now. So here's the thing. They don't even have that down, and they're arguably the best in the NFL right now when it comes to just playing in general. The Cowboys need to be smarter, because, again, you're playing this kind of crew. Guys, you cannot have that many penalties in the game, because had the Chargers not had as many as they did, you're losing this game easily because of why? More self-inflicted wounds, which has been the topic of conversation for the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, and last year as well. But I think more than anything, like, penalties in the course of a game don't really bother me all that much. Like, if you're obviously headhunting, that's going to be annoying for me. If you just make a stupid play hitting somebody 5 yards out of bounds, that's dumb. But I think it's the pre-snap penalties that are terrible. So many offsides penalties. And listen, with a crew that you're going to get a bunch of offensive holding calls, creating as Dak Prescott, that you're going to get those calls, even if they are ticky-tack, because this crew likes to call them. And that's part of, the creation ability and the problem of that. But I think when I look at this team overall, and I look at the penalties specifically, it's just an undisciplined team. The offsides penalties are bad. The Jaron Curse one was awful from last week. It's just lack of discipline, lack of attention to detail. And being aggressive, and I understand being aggressive and wanting to get off the ball, the pass rush is so important, especially now that Trayvon Diggs is out. But you have to avoid pre-snap penalties, and they're not doing a very good job of that.
I'm going through the list of penalties here because trust me, penalties in general drive me crazy. That is like my football pet peeve. And the pre-snap, like you said, that's really the biggest killer. And you call self-inflicted wounds that because you're not even giving yourself the chance at that point. Or in this case, when you just have those offsides penalties, like you're just giving them a free play. Like it's insane to me. But I'm going through this, and that's a heavy officiating crew when Zach Martin gets called for a holding penalty.
That was so
by the
ridiculous. Zach Martin literally does not hold. It doesn't happen.
He doesn't.
He has more all pros than he does holding penalties in his career. It's here's the thing: when you get a crew,
because I think they're equal now with the one from last night.
Darn. Yeah, well, no, it got declined, so he's still okay.
Oh, there you go.
It got declined, so he's still okay. But when I look at it, it's a crew that you likes to call penalties already, and then on top of the penalties, it's a Monday Night Football game, and no matter who you are, if you are on TV, you want the spotlight. You do. You want it. You don't want to hide. And these refs do not want to hide. That is very obvious every single time. And I think that that's part of the reason why the Cowboys are such a heavily penalized team is because they play so often in primetime football games because they are the Dallas Cowboys and because of the star. So I do think that that is part of all of this. And listen, my bigger issue is more than the 20 penalties in the game between the two teams, and it felt like 40, is that
it like 100. It really did.
It so chops the game up. It makes it a bad football game to watch because it's every single play, every big play that's made offensively, every turnover. You have to sit there and be like, well, where's the laundry at? The laundry's there somewhere. This play is coming back. And that is a really annoying product to watch. And I just don't understand how the NFL hasn't interjected itself into this conversation yet and talked to these referees and said, hey, swallow your flippin' whistle. I almost got it. I almost went X-rated there.
Like, the editing team's gonna be so mad for that. Oh my god.
I fixed it. I
saved himself. I love that. I was waiting. Just like
Radio good. Dalton turned back on, and I remembered those days. Don't get dumped. Don't get dumped.
I love that for you. But before we kind of switch gears to the defense, I want to ask you. Obviously, going down the field was an issue for the Cowboys a few times. 3 and out, still an issue as this Cowboys team continues to figure things out. What did you think about the red zone production in this game? Do you think it's something that's getting better? Is it something that's about the same? Where are you with the red zone woes right now and how the Cowboys offense have handled it just for this week alone?
Well, I mean, I think here's the thing is in the red zone and everything gets so much tighter. I mean, you saw it with the Chargers, that little motion got the Cowboys twice. And I think that when you have an offense that is static in the red zone, it's going to be incredibly difficult to consistently score when you get down there. And it is because of that. It's because it's so difficult to find an advantage outside of like a 1v1, fade, a red zone fade. And the Cowboys don't have a guy like that. And the Cowboys don't have a quarterback that is particularly good at that throw specifically. So if you don't have that trump card, schematically you have to be better. And they're just not better than other teams in that area. So I think it's going to remain an issue unless they get the running game going down there. And to do that, they are going to need to use Dak's legs. And that 18-yard scamper last night was a good start.
Something I wanted to ask you, and we didn't get into this before we started talking about all the game stuff, was the Deuce Vaughn was not active for the first time this season last night. Do you think he's a guy that can be kind of a problem solver in the red zone? Hunter Lipke is another name that's come up. Where do you feel like his impact was missed at any point in the offense last night? Do you feel like not having him active takes away from the versatility that they're able to create within their play calling and those special packages that McCarthy talks about that he can be involved in.
No, I don't think so. I think that, first of all, I think Rico Dowdle needs more play on offense. I love the way that he runs football, and I would like for Tony Pollard to be fresher. Seeing him get tackled from behind on that throw and catch was really annoying because I know that Tony Pollard has the speed to make that play and to house that. The problem is he's playing a lot and his legs are a little bit tired. So let's give Rico Dowdle a couple more snaps, a couple more carries. Let's see how that goes. But I think more than anything in the red zone, the Cowboys, the one thing that they have done well at is getting the ball into the hands of their tight ends. And I think getting, someone like McKeon or Lupke, like somebody that's coming out of the backfield, play action in that instance, the mesh throwback to Brandon Cooks last night. First of all, it was a beautiful fadeaway throw, and Cooks went out and just made a great play. But it's those kinds of plays. And then on top of that, run some motion, please, for the love of God, and have the natural rub routes like you saw with the Chargers with their first touchdown. It was incredibly easy, that entire process, and it's because they knew they were getting man coverage. They went into motion, and they knew that if they weren't going to pass that off, there was absolutely no way Jordan Lewis was going to be able to get there, and he couldn't.
Another thing that forgot to mention beforehand was Peyton Hendershot was one of the guys placed on IR the week before. And so that means he's out for at least 4 weeks before he can return. He's been dealing with an ankle injury for the last 2 weeks that kept him sidelined anyways. I saw he was on the sidelines, not dressed out obviously, but he was on the sidelines during this game. I saw him a couple times on the broadcast, but having Sean McKeon in, I think is so interesting because he's a guy that was a camp standout. I mean, he had one of the best training camps arguably within the team. He obviously had his best training camp within his time with the Cowboys. But do you feel like without Peyton Hendershot that there's some missed opportunities that could happen? Or do you feel confident in Sean McKeon's game? Because I have an opinion about this, but I'll let you go first. But I want to pose the question to you first.
I think we both know how both of us feel about this. I loved what I saw from McKeon in camp, and I like that he is a little bit of a veteran when these other guys aren't. I think Hendershot has been inconsistent, and I would love to see what McKeon is able to do for you in a little bit of an extended playing role here with the injury. So I'm very excited about what we're going to get from him.
Oh yeah, I've been excited about Sean since OTAs going back because he just looked fresh. And Sean's a guy that I caught up with a lot in the offseason asking, like, what are you doing differently? Did you switch anything up? And he switched his offseason training up to really emphasize a lot of things that he hadn't been before. And so it was funny when I talked to him, I said, what do you want your identity to be this season? He said, I want to be gritty and tough. I want to be able to bounce back from things. And I want to be able to, be there for Dak Prescott more than anything. He was one of the guys that was going on, those trips and creating that offseason continuity with Dak Prescott. So it's just going to be an easy transition for him to go in there. And like you said, he's one of the veteran guys. He is technically the veteran guy in that room. When you want to talk about age and experience, it's Sean McKeon, which is weird because he's not your starting, tight end. But it's a really good group. He fits right in. He's part of their four horsemen. And so I'm excited to see more from Sean as this continues on. And look, the play, when was it, last week, where Terp fumbled the ball and Sean's the one making sure that everything is taken care of to get that ball again. It was funny in the locker room. I told him, I said, hey, I think Terp owes you a little bit of a thank you because nobody's talking about the fact that he fumbled the ball, but everyone's talking about the fact that what a playmaker you were for that play and key. Even Jerry Jones went on the fan and talked about it, saying that's a winning play. And he said, yeah, I think Terp owes us dinner actually for that one. So I got to go back and ask if Terp ended up buying them dinner or not for that. But yeah, all that to say, I'm really excited for Sean McKeon and the opportunity because he was a guy that Mike McCarthy even said after the first 53-man roster, the final roster came out, he said, that's a hard one because you're telling a guy that's done everything right that he didn't make this roster and that he's going to the practice squad, essentially because Hunter Lipke came out right at the very last second to take that roster spot. But yeah, look, I love that tight end room. You know this, it's no secret. So I'm just really excited for him there as well. Let's switch to the defense because another guy that was put on IR this week was Leighton Vander Esch. This was a really big deal, and I was interested to see how the Cowboys were going to respond to not having their main communicator on the defense. Keep in mind, Sean, oh my goodness, I'm thinking of Sean Lee now. Wrong linebacker. Yeah, wrong linebacker. Leighton is the kind of guy, he has the green dot, so he's your radio communicator with everybody up in the box that's, scouting things out and all of that. So that's a really hard place to fill because that's a lot of responsibility on top of what he's already doing, diagnosing plays from the offense. So what did you notice about how this team kind of responded, how they shifted guys around to be able to fill in his absence? Because he's ineligible for about 4 weeks now at the minimum. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a little bit longer because you're talking about a neck issue. And with his neck history, you want to play it safe, not sorry.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. But, listen. Marquise Bell. I need to shout him out. I'm calling it already. PFN VP.
I need that. I need that to just be its own video. Editing team, if you're listening to this, I need that video. It's my
PFN VP. Marquise Bell was unbelievable last night. He was everywhere, and I love it. He's a safety who is a little bit undersized. He's playing linebacker for this football team, and he's playing with his pants on fire. He was fantastic. And I think that the other thing that really stood out to me, listen, Tank is always going to be good against the run. It's what he does. Micah is going to make plays and be gravitational and make things more difficult for the offensive line. Osa is playing, I think, the best football of his career. And between Osa in the middle and Marquise Bell at the second level, those are two guys who absolutely balled out last night. And it was just a lot of fun to watch that defensive line really step it up, continuously pressure Justin Herbert, and really kind of make up for this secondary because this secondary got worked last night. Got lucky a lot that Justin Herbert was a little bit off. Was Herbert off because of his guide hand being a little bit banged up? And he was wearing a glove? Was it because of the pressure that was consistently in his face on about half of his dropbacks? I don't know, but he was off. He was bad last night. And I think it was because, a little bit at least, because of that defensive line.
Well, and Justin Herbert, too, didn't take a snap at center this entire week going into this game because that's a broken finger that he's dealing with on his non-throwing hand, but still
a broken finger and a nail that's completely gone. That was a pretty gruesome injury. I don't know if anybody's ever ripped a nail off before.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's awful.
It is horrible. As a long nail truther, it is horrible. And I know that people make fun of me when I'm like, oh my gosh, I broke my nail. Look, it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad and it's gross and it takes forever to grow back. I wouldn't recommend it. So shout out to Justin Herbert. Look, that's pain on top of a broken finger, which I don't know if you've ever broken a finger, Dalton, but I haven't broken one. I've sprained it, but you don't realize how much you use a finger in your everyday life until you cannot use it anymore. And I can't even imagine that being a quarterback in the NFL because even just day-to-day life, it's so frustrating to use. Given it's not his throwing hand, but it still impacts how he plays. And when you're not playing a snap at center all week, and not to mention his center just came back, so that cadence is a little bit off as well. That center was dealing with a heart issue up until this game, so he wasn't available before. And so when you don't have that spot-on communication from your quarterback and your center, it's going to leak through a little bit, whether you've played with them for years or not. That 1 week of practice, especially for a D-line like this with the edge rush, it was not a recipe for success for them.
I actually have broken a finger. I broke my thumb and I had to get surgery
Not
on it.
enough
I had to get a pin in it, and it made I wore a club on my hand, and during the 7-on-7 season, which is in the summer, I broke it during baseball season, and during the 7-on-7 season, I would take snaps with the club, and I would just like clap it together to take the snaps and play quarterback. It was not easy. It was not easy to throw a high school ball because without that guide hand, I was a two-hand guy. A lot of guys are one hand. That is not the way I did things, and it was very difficult to play the position when that happened.
Well, there you go. That proves the point that whether it's on his throwing hand or not, a messed up finger, that's going to mess up your game. So I think Justin did a really good job with what he could and what was working good for him. So yeah, shout out to his broken finger for or him playing through that, because that's hard. No, that's hard. Shout out to him for playing through that, because that's hard.
Thanks, for playing poorly. Because the Cowboys needed it. The Cowboys would not have won that game if Justin Herbert plays the way that Justin Herbert can play.
That was not the best of Justin Herbert. And that was very obvious. Something else that you had mentioned, let me see. Let me go back there. I was taking notes. Was the quarterback play. And we were talking about that a little bit earlier. You touched base on it. What concerns you the most about the secondary? You're weeks into the season now, having played without Trayvon Diggs. Has there been adjustment to kind of fill that gap that is without Trayvon for the rest of the season? How would you say Stephon Gilmore played this week compared to last week, other than the very clutch interception that ended the game? What about that secondary is not working, and what needs to be focused on throughout the bye week coming up?
Yeah, it's just a really difficult defense. You're asked to do a lot individually as a corner in this defense. You're playing, 6, 7, 8 yards off of the ball, playing a lot of man coverage, and that's a very difficult assignment. Trayvon Diggs is one of the best at, we saw the double moves yesterday from Keenan Allen against Deron Bland. And listen, Deron Bland still playing some very good football overall. He made an incredible play on that 4th down in the end zone. That was a heart stopper. But I think when you look at the secondary overall, Gilmore is a step or two slower than he used to be, and that's okay. But this is a defense that is incredibly difficult for corners to survive in when they are 100%, at their athletic level. And I think without a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who is so mentally sharp in those situations, and yes, every once in a while he will get beat by a double team or by a double move, but overall he has a very good understanding of the situation and what is going on, and I think that he's gotten better in that area. But those quick passes that they continue to get beat up on, a lot of it is just, they're playing man coverage, the team goes in motion, they pull, the apex, which is usually a safety, out of the box. And then that opens up that slant window, and it's just impossible to defend at that point when you're playing 7 yards off the ball. So it's just a really difficult defense to play for corners. It's a lot of man coverage. There's a lot asked of them, and that's why they need this defensive line to consistently get pressure like they did last night.
Something else I wanted to touch base on before we kind of wrap up the conversation, I was muted there, was Micah Parsons. And Micah Parsons getting a very clutch sack, the second to last play of the game right before the Stephon Gilmore interception. What have you noticed from Micah? Because especially in this game, all eyes were on him to kind of play a hybrid role here with being a defensive end, but also linebacker. Was there a hybrid role? Did he kind of switch things up in the absence of Leighton Vander Esch? I almost said Sean Lee once again. It's not Sean Lee. I have to keep reminding myself of that, although it feels very Sean Lee-esque to talk about Leighton now. What did you notice from Micah during this game? And he wasn't able to get the sack until late in the game, but that doesn't take away from the productivity that the Lion had throughout the game. What did you notice?
This is just a public service announcement to football fans in general. And I'm going to be a little bit mean here. I'm going to be a little bit direct here to you guys. If you don't understand the complexities of football, specifically when it comes to pass rushing, just keep your mouth shut. If you watched that game last night and you took Troy Aikman's words that, Micah Parsons has been kind of quiet tonight. If you believe that, then you weren't watching Micah Parsons last night. Because Micah Parsons getting through double teams, creating constant pressure. At the time of that sack, before I had the numbers on what Micah Parsons did, I said, this is what Troy said. Next play, immediately, sack, which I thought was hilarious. The irony of that. And then I said, he's had like 8 pressures tonight or something. Like, he has been around Justin Herbert. He has affected the passer. Pressures affect the passer. They matter. Sacks are not the only thing that matter in a football game. Tackles are not the only thing that matter in a football game. This guy is getting double teamed and still consistently getting pressures on opposing quarterbacks. And if you sat there, watched that game, and you said, Micah Parsons didn't do anything until that sack, please keep that thought to yourself.
Wow, Dalton was holding that in. Do you feel better?
Yeah,
get that off your
because
chest?
I had some dummy last night on Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter, who said, Micah didn't do anything all game. First of all, if you go to that man's account, he is absolutely miserable because he was just calling everybody morons or that they sucked all night last night. That's his entire page. And there's a lot of people like that. A lot of people just get on X, formerly Twitter, and just kind of vent like I am right now. On this, I have a podcast to do it. It's your fault for allowing me to be behind a microphone. But I just sit here and first of all, I don't understand how you can be that miserable all the time. But if you're miserable and you don't know ball, maybe you should just sit it out. Just sit this one out. Maybe change your password. Maybe have your significant other or a friend change your password and just take a chill pill and don't get on the internet for a while.
Life advice from Dalton Miller, everybody. We love it. Dalton's therapy session of the week. We also love that. The mute and block button have become my favorite thing since I started this job, even more so than before. But since I started this job, definitely.
You can also make people unfollow you as well, which I think is hilarious. Which is a somewhat new feature. You got to give credit where credit is due to Elon. Good. That's a fun one because sometimes I'll just make somebody unfollow me and I won't block them. Then they'll follow me again and then I'll block them.
Petty. That is so
If I want, I can go full. I can go full no see on the internet when I want to, but I just choose not to most of the time.
How did we end up here? It's my question.
We started talking about Micah Parsons.
I'm sorry.
Who was awesome.
I didn't realize I struck a nerve here with you. Shout out to the man that Dalton is talking about that was giving him this grief last night on Twitter. I'm sorry I didn't see it to be able to know what happened. But to your point, yes, Micah Parsons is still productive. Anyone that says otherwise is just not knowledgeable. And anything I want to say.
I'm not trying to tell you how to be a fan. I'm just trying to tell you how to talk on the internet or not talk.
Or not talk. No, but it is true. Micah Parsons, let's see. I was trying to pull up these stats while you were venting to us a little bit there. 1 sack, yes, 8 yards, 3 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for loss. But again, that doesn't even count the pressures that he was putting on Justin Herbert all night. Incredible stuff from Micah Parsons week in and week out, even setting people up for success when he's not making the big play. So
he has the second most pressures in the NFL through 6 games.
There you go. Okay, so your PFN VP for the week was?
That's it. Honestly, this is the first time it's been like super tough, and it's been super tough for a good reason because there's been a game or two where nobody deserved the PFN VP. This one, a lot of people that deserved it. I could give it to Osa, I could give it to Marquise Bell, but I really do believe that they lose this football game very comfortably if it is not for Dak Prescott playing Superman. The numbers don't look outrageous. He didn't throw for 7,000 yards, but he was the best player on the football field last night.
I'm going to give my PFN VP to CeeDee Lamb for this game because welcome back to your wide receiver one who hasn't had opportunity until really this point since week one. You're talking week one was the last time that CeeDee had a 100-yard game, and here he comes again saying, look, I want the ball. Give me the ball. There was not one time last night where, again, we're recording this on Tuesday, where CeeDee Lamb was disappointing in what he was giving you all night. I mean, he was absolutely incredible, and I'm just so happy that he got those opportunities. Let's see, I'm pulling up some stats. He had 117 yards for 7 targets, 7 receptions, averaging 16.7 yards per catch. That is your wide receiver one. I'm happy that him and Dak Prescott kind of did that side work to be able to have a productive game for himself going into this bye week. Everybody can get healthy. He talked about that in the post-game ESPN interview, saying everyone can go into this bye week, get healthy, and then come back and get at it. But something that I also loved that he talked about was the contributions that Brandon Cooks has made, not just on the field, but off the field. He gave credit to Brandon Cooks, saying, he's the reason I show up to the facility even earlier. He said way earlier than I used to. And so what you're seeing now is wide receiver one already a very viable and strong, powerful playmaker on your offense, becoming even more powerful because of this Brandon Cooks effect, which I'm very excited for. So CeeDee Lamb, he's my PFN VP of the week. Is there anything else that you have to get off your chest before we end this podcast, Dalton? I mean, we're cutting short on time here, but anything else you want to get off your chest before we let the people go?
No, I don't think so. I'm gonna give Michael Gallup another week, before putting him down. And I think the other thing is thank you for bringing up Brandon Cooks because he was on a milk carton before last night. And this is a guy who has had 4 1,000-yard seasons with 4 different franchises. He can ball. He can play. And I'm glad that they finally acknowledged that last night.
Absolutely. And hopefully it's not the last time that you see that from Brandon Cooks there. One last thing before we go. Someone check on this lady today. If you know her, if you check on her, please, if you know her, you love her, check on your girl. Make sure she's doing good today. That was it's a rough game for her, man. The last 2 minutes, I'm sure she did not appreciate her love very much. So, check on her.
What was the obsession? Was it the cameraman's old lady? Like, why was she? She's not famous. They were like, she doesn't look like Taylor Swift. What are we doing here? I was so confused watching that at 3:30 in the morning.
I'm sure that felt very fever dream-esque for you at that point.
Lady's entire worldview and mood came down to every single play that the Chargers made or did not. It was outstanding.
Look, check on her if you know her. I hope we find out who she is because she had the time of her life at that game no matter what. So that's the football effect for you. That's why we love it. Dalton, where can the people find you on social media?
Dalton B. Miller.
And they're going to tweet you and you can make them unfollow you if they say anything. I'm at Jess Nevarez _ on Twitter. You can go ahead and tweet us. Let us know what you think. Before you are done with this podcast episode, make sure to go give us all 5 stars with your rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Let us know what you think and go check us out on YouTube. This is a video as well, so you can see all the fantastic facial expressions that we give you throughout the podcast as we record. Very expressive. We appreciate you guys for listening every single week. The Dallas Cowboys going on their bye week now, 3-2, which is much better than it would have been had they lost this game. So, Dalton, I hope you enjoy your bye week, get some sleep, and that you don't get in any more Twitter fights. Let's hope for that as our bye week continues on. How does that sound?
Fantastic. Let's get it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you soon. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Go be amazing, and we appreciate you.